times that the internet could kind of touch our lives any more than it already does. It feels like it's kind of just everywhere already. But that's just kind of our computers and laptops and our mobile phones. And then with the kind of falling cost of electronics and processing power and stuff, we're seeing kind of the next wave of the internet coming along, which is when we start to put computing power and network connectivity into all sorts of other stuff. So, for example, a couple of things that I've kind of worked on personally, that could be a load of sensors inside a silo of chicken food on a farm just outside Blackburn, up the road, and that then relayed back how much chicken food was left so that they knew when they needed to send another lorry with like 5 tons of chicken food out to go and top it up. Or on the kind of more whimsical end, it could be a bubble machine that connects to the internet and watches Twitter, and then if it's not somewhere where there's a really weird firewall in between it and the internet like there is at the moment, because he's not been very active today, and there have been tweets, then yeah, you can build bubble machines that watch Twitter and blow bubbles every time, whatever you programmed it for. Today, TEDxOldham normally does Liverpool or Bubblino. So if you ever want to generate bubbles in the centre of Liverpool, just tweet does Liverpool at some point and there'll be bubbles in my office. So there's those sorts of things basically kind of like starting to come along now. There's what's called the Internet of Things. And so lots of people are getting excited about how we put that into cities and the kind of term smart cities. And I think that it's sort of, basically I'm going to talk lots about smart cities today, which is what I kind of wanted to kind of just raise awareness of and talk about some of the kind of possibilities and maybe some different ways of framing things. But I think all of this, you know, I'll talk about cities, but it all applies to towns as well and smaller cities. And in some ways, I think towns are better placed to kind of play around and experiment with this sort of stuff. Because they can be sort of, just the scale means that you can roll something out over an entire town for not as much money as it would cost to run it like over New York or London or something. And so we can kind of experiment with stuff in towns and smaller cities, and there's kind of more of an opportunity for kind of working out what's good about smart cities, I think. So smart cities, they're kind of, yeah, lots of the big IT kind of consultancies are all getting very excited, and people who sell infrastructure and servers and things like that, they're all kind of, you know, excellent, this is a new sales channel for us. We can all run after this smart city stuff. And so they've all got their own kind of little land grab for it. IBM are doing smarter cities. Cisco have a thing called smart and connected communities. Microsoft's is called Next City, I think, or City Next, can't remember which. And you know, there are people building actual kind of places that have got all this kind of tech installed in it. So this is part of Songdo, which is a new town, new city in South Korea. It's got loads of tech infrastructure, lots of sensors everywhere, everything all connected up. Every single dwelling has a telepresence kind of video conferencing suite because you know, it's being partly kind of sponsored and kind of developed by Cisco, and they want to sell lots of networking equipment. So, you know, you can control your heating through a massive sort of touch screen, and then you can do virtual learning and teleworking and stuff like that, and do everything through massive screens, and you don't have to leave the house. And this is an architectural rendering of one that's slightly closer to home. This is the Plan IT Valley, which is in Portugal, where they've got a chunk of space in Portugal, and they're building a new city from the ground up that's going to be all connected together, and their aim is to build what they call an urban operating system that will take all of the kind of sensor information and help connect it all up so that the people running the city can know exactly how it all works and manage it all really nicely. And all of these kind of approaches that people are pushing with this sort of thing, it's always the language is always around how it's going to make everything so much more efficient. Usually it's the fact that your daily commute is going to be so much easier because they'll be smoothing the traffic flows because of all the sensors they've got everywhere. And you'll have been able to book your parking space before you left the house, so you don't have to drive around looking for parking spaces. And because of that, then pollution will be lower, and apparently the environment will be saved, and it will save councils kind of millions of pounds in lost earnings of congestion or something, or more parking charges because they've been able to kind of smooth out getting people into parking spaces. I don't know. It's all about all-around efficiency. And it feels to me that that's not really always what we want a city for. Like, usually people congregate in cities usually because of the kind of connections you make and the kind of serendipity that you get because you've bumped into somebody when you were walking somewhere else. And we don't just want to live in efficient kind of houses and homes. There's a lot of kind of messiness and stuff to it that if you get rid of all of that, then the city probably won't work anymore. And the argument is always that all of this data and this sensor data and things it's just data. There's no kind of inherent, it doesn't have an opinion or a political stance. It's data, it's agnostic. Nobody can be worried about it because the data just says that. But there are actually just policies get embedded into all of this stuff. The fact that data is agnostic is a lie. You get things like the sort of smart till in all the supermarkets now, and even if we leave aside the whole, supermarkets are rolling out so that they don't have to employ people to work in supermarkets quite so much aspect of it, even just on the kind of using it as an individual, it's somebody has gone in who's writing the software and has picked how long it should wait from when it's giving you your change to when it says, please take your items from the bagging area. And that's not to remind you because everybody forgets the stuff they've just bought. That's to kind of encourage you that you should be getting off this till really quickly so that the next person in the queue can get on the till, and they need fewer tills to be able to get more and more people through the system. It feels to me that basically there are kind of, it's all being seen as this utopian, seamless, amazing, wonderful kind of future. And maybe we should be a little wary of the tech people bearing kind of our savior. And kind of taking some of that sort of concept that there are lots of problems in our cities that need to be solved. But lots of the problems are ones that don't have one set solution. There isn't one way to solve it. And often the way to solve it involves balancing different people's kind of needs. And if one person kind of wins almost, then another one loses. And these problems are what are termed wicked problems. And I pulled the kind of the definition, part of the definition from Wikipedia on it. And it's just, solutions aren't right or wrong. And so we're trying to work out what these solutions are. It isn't that, if we just give us all enough data, always just get some more sensors will be able to solve this for us. It's like, that's not true. And so we need to work out how we're going to fix these sorts of problems and realize that there isn't just one solution and that it's going to involve kind of discussion and decisions, and we should kind of bear that in mind and try and make sure that it's not just decisions that favor the powerful or decisions that favor the corporations who are going to make money from it. Which isn't to say that we shouldn't be putting some of these sensors and stuff in, but just that we should be working out and be aware of why we're doing it and what we're looking to gain as a result of it. And the photo in the background is one I took it's just at the front at Liverpool. The stripy building in the back was actually the White Star building where they announced the Titanic disaster from the balcony of. But the thing I want to talk about is this kind of 60s concrete thing, which is a remnant of the last time we tried to kind of reconfigure all of our cities around the latest technology. But that technology was the car. And basically that's a bit of a sort of what looks like kind of the balcony almost. Used to be a skyway that went across the road because in the 60s in Liverpool, they decided that what they should do is they should just move all the pedestrians up a level. And so there was a whole load of little bits of infrastructure built around the city that were little walkways and things, because the idea was that all the cars would be on the ground floor and all the people would be on the first floor. And so we end up with a kind of really weird situation that one of the underground stations in Liverpool is probably the only one in the world where in order to get into it, you have to go up to the first floor before you then go down into the underground station. And all that stuff's been kind of like torn out now, eventually, almost. You know, there are little tiny kind of stairwells and stuff, not dotted about, if you know what you're looking for. And that was us trying to work out how to fit this sort of stuff into our existing cities. You know, it can work. It doesn't always work if you're doing it with an entirely new city. So you get little bits, like the Barbican in London, kind of, you know, just about works, that whole kind of separating things out. Skelmersdale probably seems less kind of successful in that. So, yeah, we should just be kind of careful before we go, oh yes, new shiny technology, let's jump all over that and completely rework our cities to fit in with this latest fancy shiny thing. So, I've got a kind of professional interest in all of this, in that, you know, my company builds Internet of Things for people, plays around with these sorts of stuff. And I'm trying to work out the best ways that we can work on that, and so that we can try to bring good kind of technology to the cities rather than just kind of technology for technology's sake. But I'm also interested in it because, you know, I live in a city and I'm a citizen. As kind of, you know, everybody lives somewhere. We want to work out how to make where we live a more interesting place and a better place. And so I'm kind of wondering whether, given that the internet is what's driving a lot of this, and also given that the internet's been really successful over the last couple of decades, whether there are things we can take from the internet in working out how we should do smart cities. So one of the kind of maxims of the internet is the small pieces loosely joined. You know, the internet didn't succeed because it was a big top-down, somebody had worked out the grand plan of how it was all going to fit together and then went off and built it. The internet worked because it was the exact opposite. People built small systems that could work with each other and had open APIs, so you could build something new and have it slot into the stuff that existed, and then kind of that would then fit in and make the whole internet better because of what it could leverage that was already there, and things that people wouldn't have thought of when they were building their part, because somebody clever worked out a way that you could tweak that and do something completely different with it. And so we should be looking to build that into our systems for, you know, managing parking, or kind of looking at the air quality sensors in the city and things like that. If we have sort of self-contained chunks of functionality with good APIs between them, then it means that people can do interesting things with that we haven't thought of and that we won't think of. And it leaves us that kind of opportunity open. And it also kind of acknowledges that we're not going to just go and off and install, like, okay, cool, we've installed all the tech for the city. Right, that's that done. Right, okay, on to the next thing we need to solve. It's like there'll be bits of it that we replace in a couple of years, unless we all want to live with kind of the equivalent of a, you know, 5¼ inch floppy disk city in 20 years. Like, bits of it are going to need to be replaced. So we should just acknowledge that and not try to build these kind of seamless experiences that sound really tempting. You know, whenever you see them and the kind of little video fly through that they'll do, it'll talk about how it's just, you know, the system just knew that you were going to the shops and it booked your parking space for you already, and you didn't have to do anything, you just got out of the car, and isn't it wonderful? And it's really tempting, but I don't think it's going to work for very long in that way, and we should think about how it's going to work if it breaks, or when it breaks, because it will. And so, yeah, keeping it small and sort of interoperable in that sort of way means that you can swap out part of it. And when you get fed up with IBM's vision of the smart city and you want to get Cisco's traffic light management stuff, then it's not going to be a massive job to try and work out how to get the two things to talk to each other, because you've kind of gone, okay, get the IBM traffic thing to talk to the other IBM bit through an API, and then there's a point where, a beautiful seam where we can put stuff in to do different things. And it should be open access. There shouldn't be gatekeepers that will stop people from sparking up a new service to do things. So a lot of the open data movement kind of feeds into some of this. The internet works because anybody can throw up a web server and put together a web service, and they don't have to go off and get permission from somebody beyond kind of, getting an IP address. And that's generally fairly easy. And there are downsides to having the open thing as well, so we should be a little wary of that. I mean, the internet isn't a perfect utopian garden where everything is lovely. There are lots of bad people on the internet in the same way there are lots of good people on the internet. And so we should look at ways to try to mitigate some of that, but we shouldn't close everything down and put gatekeepers in instead, because that will just stifle a lot of the interesting things that people want to do with it. Because, the gatekeeper won't like what it is that they're doing because it challenges their power a little or something like that. You can get lots of scenarios and unintended consequences of kind of having the gatekeepers. And you see it with some of the Apple App Store sort of issues about what can and can't get into the App Store, because Apple have got some vested interests. And so keep it open so that anybody can get in and can play around with this and make things better. And acknowledge that it's going to be a bit messy. Like, it's not as nice. Everybody wants everything to be able to sort of neatly fit into different predefined niches, but like, life isn't like that. No matter how much we try to make it like that. So we should look, for sort of things like tags and folksonomies. They'll work much better than kind of semantic classifications. I don't know if I should be saying this sort of thing in a library. Arguing against classifying things, and there's definitely a place for it. But there's a lot you can do by just kind of acknowledging that it's all going to be a bit messy, but actually we can just about work out enough good stuff from the messy thing to achieve what we want, and let the kind of crowd define how stuff is going to go. And if we can take that through into how the cities go and experiment with different things and let the good stuff bubble up, then maybe we'll end up building some really cool things to the cities that aren't just being able to park your car nicely. And look at kind of networks rather than top-down. I think a lot of the smart city stuff is coming from the fact that the people driving it and the people with the budgets are the councils, and they're looking for savings, especially at the moment. And so they're quite hierarchical in their kind of history and background, how they do stuff. And we need to work out ways that we can kind of move towards or move from that to a sort of system of networks where we get lots of different people involved in it. So you get, yes, councillors and planning officials and technologists and architects and just interested citizens, and everybody gets to kind of discuss and work out what we're going to do with our city, the where we live. We should have a stake in it and not just delegate the kind of what happens to it to sort of some public official or a corporation. Because, after all, it takes people to meet a load of buildings, despite what the kind of council or the business press releases that we seem to get. I'm sure you get lots of in Oldham in the same way we do in Liverpool, where such and such a building is going to create X thousand jobs, when what they really mean is such and such a building is going to have enough space that you could put X number of desks in, which could then seat X number of people with jobs. And it somehow gets kind of lost along the kind of press release. And we need people in the cities. We need to be working out cities that work for everybody and not just the ones who've got power or who've got a certain bit of technology. We should be looking for kind of cities that make life better and more equitable and provide more opportunities to everyone. Thank you very much.